Hey everyone, my name's Chris and I just want to make a video to talk through with you today the experience of sitting the ADI theory test. So this is my part one, this is my first attempt at doing this. So I booked this around about 5 weeks ago, and even though I could have had an earlier date to do this test, we've not long since had a little baby boy. It's actually 3 months old today at the point that I'm actually recording this video. So I kind of just pushed the test back a couple of weeks just while we got used to his sleeping routines, and then we've had a week's holiday away last week and stuff like that. So I just feel like I just want to kind of maybe give myself a little bit more time to revise and study. In hindsight, if I was to do this again, I feel like I would have probably given myself around about 2 weeks from the point that I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready for doing it, to actually sit in it. I feel like I've probably left a little bit too long in terms of that. So I've done the test today at the centre in Manchester. So this is just outside of the city centre. Experiences of going there it's dead easy to find. It's not particularly that far outside the city centre. If you've never done your theory test there before, it's about 1.5 miles, I'd say, outside the city centre. It's not a massive distance. If you are driving down there and you're taking your own car, parking around there is absolutely atrocious. There is a car park on the street that sort of faces where the building is, where they have the test centre, and parking in there is £4 and you will need to pay cash. So I kind of got down there and getting a little bit flustered. Don't try and park on any side streets because there is traffic wardens going around. There's quite a few cars where they parked on single yellow lines and they've got tickets on. It does seem like, just don't risk it, whatever you do. So let's say I sat that today at 11 o'clock this morning. So in terms of the scoring on the test, I got a score of 94 out of 100 for the multiple choice questions. So for the last few weeks, I literally have spent every week, probably about 4, maybe even 5 days a week, spending time revising. So I've used the DTS Anytime software. There's a couple of others as well that I've tried. There's a whole range of different YouTube videos and tutorials and websites and stuff that I've used as well, just to try and refresh my own knowledge and just up my knowledge level. If you kind of think what I would have done on a theory test 5 years ago when I was learning how to drive, this is a lot more in depth and also a lot more intense. So the 94 out of 100 score broke down as follows. So the road procedure, I got 25 out of 25. So that's good. That goes to show for me that the process of revising the knowledge part of it, the part where I had to take in information and store information, by putting that level of revision in, that actually worked out okay. Same with traffic signs, signals, car control, pedestrians and mechanical knowledge. Hit 23 out of that one. Publications and instructional techniques was a 24 out of 25. The lowest score on there was the driving test, disability and law, which scored 22 out of 25. Again, they're not bad scores, and that's just a part of me that's a bit like, I'm that perfectionist, and I want to get the best possible result that I can. And ultimately, there's a mark where you pass and there's a mark where you don't, and thankfully it was over that side of it. In terms of revision, I've spent, like I say, quite a lot of time with the apps. In terms of books, essential skills, highway code, traffic signs have kind of been my bedtime reading. When I've got a break in work, I'll just sit and just read a little bit more on there. With some of the questions that I got on the theory test part 1, there's a few things in there that I've not seen anywhere. So for example, one of the questions that I got was, what is the benefit of dual control braking? And one of the options was it will help reduce or minimize the risk of brake failure, or it will help with your stopping of your vehicle. It enhances or it improves the braking of your vehicle. Now, I've not seen that on any software that I've used. That question and revising that, and when you get the option of going through and seeing all the questions and the answers and reading through all of them, I've not seen that anywhere, either on any software or in any book that I've read. So with a couple of these questions, I kind of had to go with what I thought was the best possible answer. And what I also found with doing this test as well is there seems to be quite a lot of the questions that seem to be very much centered around your working relationship with your pupil. How do you know that, what's a learning plateau, and what do you do when this happens? If there's an incident or an accident, who is responsible for following procedures? And one of the options was you as the instructor and the pupil, the instructor, the pupil, and anyone else that's in the car. And again, I've not seen the answer to that in any publication or any software and stuff that I've used for the revision purposes. So again, I just had to go with what I thought was the correct answer, which, as I'm looking at that question, I would answer that and say, for me, it would be the instructor, and I would feel that I would be the one that would be responsible for that. Obviously, I don't know whether that is the right answer. If you're watching this video, please tell me whether it is or not, so other people would have the benefit, if they see that question themselves. So, like I say, there was a few questions on there that threw me a little bit. In terms of technique, I didn't rush doing the test. I think I took around about 45 to 50 minutes doing it. That time went a lot quicker than what I felt like it was doing. I went through and just did all the questions in order. Some of them were things I had only just read and revised this morning. Fantastic. Yeah, ask me about that. Brilliant. What's a white line at the edge of the road for? What does that indicate? A few of the questions, for example, one of them was diagonal lines across the centre of a road, surrounded by broken white lines at either side of them. What does that indicate? What would you instruct your pupil that means? Now, when I've done revision on this so far, a lot of the revision questions I've seen on that question alone have been, you see a picture of what them road markings are like. Now, when you're reading that as a question, you kind of start looking at this and going, are you trying to visualize it? And am I trying to visualize what I feel is like the diagonal lines going across the road and then the two broken lines going down the side of it? I think that's what they're asking me for here. So by not having any sort of, on the test I did, there was nothing that was kind of like, here's an image, what does this sign represent? There was none of that. So I feel like studying my traffic signs, it wasn't wasted, but I feel like the time that I spent on that potentially could have been spent elsewhere. A few questions on there which were reasonably simple to answer. What do signs in a triangle mean? What do signs in a red circle mean? What does that imply that they actually are? So they're not a whole load of really, really difficult questions. There's a few on there that for the life of me, I didn't know. There was a few on there that I just had this absolute mental blackout, and there's a few on there that I'm like, I've only just read this and it's not coming back to me. Why is it not coming back to me to actually know the answer to this? Your pupil's just doing through some shallow, or they're about to approach some shallow flood water. What do you instruct them to do? How should they drive and manoeuvre the vehicle? And I'm going, is it with high engine revs, or is it in a high gear? And you're going, I know this, but I'm kind of sat there doubting myself. So anyway, onwards. Hazard perception. So hazard perception, fucking hell, don't know how I did this one. 59 out of 75, and pass mark on hazard perception is 57. One of the questions I got my answer disqualified, and for the life of me, I don't know why. When I sat doing my hazard perception test, I'm very, very mindful that I'm not kind of going click, click, click to try and generate a pattern. I'm very mindful that I'm not doing that. Also, that I'm not clicking too soon. You know, I've seen it kind of mentioned before where people have said, as experienced drivers, we are very good at spotting hazards before they kind of start to become a hazard, and if you're not kind of hitting the scoring window, the risk is you've spotted the hazard but not necessarily at the point where you're going to score for that. It's not that your ability to spot where something can become a hazard isn't good. It's just too soon. So as soon as I got that one where it come up, you're scoring nothing on this one, I'm like, I just kind of like got myself in a bit of a tiz, really, if you will. But in terms of the scoring on the hazard perception, so scored no points on one clip, scored 1 point on one clip. I'm going to say that I think the 1 point on one clip will be the clip that followed the you're not scoring anything on this one. And I feel like I've kind of probably got myself in that much of a fluster. Why? What have I done? That I then kind of lost it a little bit on the next one. I don't know that for definite, but I feel like instinctively that's what I feel is probably has happened there. You scored 3 points on one clip, and then on the rest it was 4 points on two clips, and luckily 5 points on 8 clips. In terms of the clips themselves, all CGI generated. I find working with CGI clips is a lot better. I practice using the DTS end time software, using like the standard definition, the high definition clips, and I'm like, I feel like the filming this on a 1990s camera, the quality of it is actually that poor sometimes, and I always score better when I was doing hazard perception using CGI clips. There's a couple of the road layouts and the modelling that they use on the hazard perception clips that you might find you have seen in some of the mock questions as well, that you might have seen depending on how you've trained and practiced so far. But I didn't find there was anything in there that was there to particularly catch me out. The one clip where I feel it was a one that was looking for two hazards, it was literally one hazard plus the next one was within seconds of it. Like, I think it was like a dog coming across the road, and then you kind of you swerve for that because you stop because there's a motorbike coming towards you, and then as soon as you set off, then there's someone opening at the door of a van and stepping out, and it's like, boom, you've kind of got to be a little bit on the ball with that one. But again, 59 out of 75, I'll take that, especially considering one of the questions I didn't get anything on, and one of the questions I only hit 1 point on. So again, not impossible, but after doing a theory test and learn to drive 5 years ago, there is a definite higher standard that you need to reach with doing these tests, but not impossible. So on reflection, I feel like the amount of work that I've put in has warranted it. It's paid off. It's reached the benchmark. I don't get why I didn't score any points on one of them hazard perception clips. What it was doing that triggered concern within the software that I was somehow doing something that I shouldn't. I just don't get that at all. And then another tip that I found useful was when I'm watching one CGI clip and then I'm watching another one, because it's a 10-second break between each clip, I just feel like if I was doing this again, I feel like I would have just been better just to look away from the screen, just momentarily look down at the desk, look up at the wall, whatever, just let my eyes just take a little breather from focusing on the screen and just watching it going down from 10 seconds down to 1, and then the next clip starting. Again, maybe that's just personal to me, but I just found that there was a little bit of time that, my eyes were getting a little bit tired, or weren't particularly focusing particularly that well as well. But do you know what? 94 and 59, it's a pass. So onwards now to part 2. I hope if you've sat and watched this video all the way through to the end, you've kind of found it useful. If you got something out of it, that's absolutely fantastic. I know there's loads of people that I've spoke to over the last few months as I've started this driving instructor journey who have been massively helpful to me, whether that's online or phone calls or emails or all sorts of different things as well. So I just felt it was nice to kind of do a talk through of what my experience of doing the part 1 ADI test was like, what the theory test was like, what the hazard perception test was like. And for those of you who are doing the test and you're sitting in Manchester, just kind of like, in terms of the building, the location, the parking, all that sort of stuff as well. So fantastic. If you got something out of it, then that's absolutely marvellous. For those of you who are going to be doing your test in the coming weeks and months, genuinely best of luck to you. Crack on, get the revision in, get your practicing in. Like I say, the one thing I found there was more questions than I probably anticipated was stuff around the instructor-pupil relationship, the working processes, the teaching mechanisms, that sort of stuff. So I'm not necessarily saying that's going to come up on other people's tests, but just be prepared for that, because there's a few of them questions that kind of caught me out, and I had to go with what I felt was the best possible answer, or in some instances the most likely answer. Thanks everyone for watching, and best of luck.